Well, I am ready for the next stage of mountain building. I have wax paper put between the lower half of the mountain and the upper half of the mountain now. I have it set so that it overlaps the existing scenery that I already have in place. You know, it fits very well where the top aligns with the bottom. And again, this does not have to be perfect because there's going to be a lot of vegetation covering to hide that seam. By the time I get done, you're going to have to look very, very hard to know that the top pops off and that I've got storage underneath of it. So areas like in here where it's fairly flat, that's going to be all trees. Lots of trees coming up. Areas down there where it's a little steeper, there's going to be some continuation of the rock scarps that are down on the other bottom piece. I will have a few continuations like here where I've got the, like I'd call it harder limestones showing. There'll be parts of those will come up through here. Not a lot, but just enough to kind of every once in a while peek out through the trees just to show a continuation of it. Over here, this is going to be horizontal strata. Again, it aligns with how the rock is dipping in that direction. A few little pieces that are going to show some curvature here. But again, most of this is going to be covered up with vegetation. So I'm going to be using a lot of trees, and I've got a lot of trees at the ready. So a bunch of them that are the JTT trees, which I still have to put some additional foam on to give them a little bit fuller look. I've got a bunch of stuff that I've been making from Woodland Scenic kits. I have to go back in, do the glue dab and shake and bake to add a little bit of filling to that. Kind of hard to see, but last night I was making a lot of trees. The ones on the back are all Woodland Scenic kits. I have to do the shake and bake, with the fine grain material to give fall colors or just kind of a little bit different colors. The other ones are the wire bristle brushes. I've already done the glue dab on those and the shake and bake to give them a little bit better color and texture. So I'm going to use lots and lots of trees on this piece. So the next piece will be, I should have Sculptamold done. I'm going to start working on that this afternoon after going out and enjoying a beautiful day out in the garden. Later in the day, on Sunday, after enjoying a nice walk in a park this afternoon, I have the Sculptamold in, and it looks pretty good. Covers what I'm wanting to do, and you can see again, Sculptamold right there. Right there is the seam split, so this ought to turn out pretty well, where I've got just a very small gap in between the two. That should be easy to hide with vegetation once I get to that point. I am going to start making up some batches of plaster. This one is not going to need too much. Like I've said earlier, I'm going to continue on some of these, but just broken, just so that they kind of poke out from the trees and other vegetation just a little bit, just to kind of show some hint of continuation. But most of what is visible in this area is going to be covered. It's going to be forested, just some areas where rock is going to stick out. So I'll see what I can finish doing tonight. I'm hoping to get the plaster in and maybe get the staining done yet this evening. It's early enough I might be able to do it. We'll see. Well, it is Monday evening. I've been out in the garage after work adding some plaster to the upper mountain. Kind of hard to tell right now how it's going to look. I've got a lot of the crumbles after doing some carving. I'm going to let everything dry a little bit more, and then I'm going to take the wire brush to it, knock some stuff down, and then vacuum up the crumbles and probably stain it yet tonight. But you can kind of see, let me move a little bit here. You can kind of see how rocks on the upper half line up with the rock on the bottom half. Does not have to be a perfect one-to-one match. Rocks are never perfect, but you can see they've got the same dip angle on them. The top part is going to be mostly covered up with vegetation, so only a little bit of this is actually going to show through. The high points on some of these little protrusions are going to be what's going to be left. Most of the rest is going to be covered with vegetation like what I've got down here, ground cover and trees. So you're not going to really see too much of it, just hints poking through the vegetation. So next piece will be after I clean it up, get all of the crumbles up, and I'll be ready to put some stain on it at that point. That'll be coming up a little later. So for this part, I've taken the top off. I've already carved, I've already vacuumed, I've already used the wire brush to get rid of the really messy crumbles. What's left on here is fine. It will be colored, and most of this will be hidden by ground cover. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stain it and paint it here. That way I don't have to get additional wax paper on the original piece. I don't have to worry about any drips or spills or anything like this. I can get it right down to where it matches up to the other section. And once it's done, I can put it back in place, and then I'm ready to start the scenery piece on this one. And there we are. The stain as well as paints have been applied. The same type of stain, same type of paint as what I did on the base. Same colorations, same basic patterns, grayish, whitish. In between the high areas more brown. This is still very wet. What I'm going to do is just let it sit for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to come in with a paper towel and do the blot technique, and then I'm ready to put it back on the layout. And there we go. Blotting is done. The little ridges stand out pretty well. There's still lots of little wet spots in the little nooks and crannies. That'll all dry over the next couple of days. So I'm ready to put this back onto the layout and see what the overall effect looks like. All right, the top is back on the mountain. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. I could have done a little bit different over there, but you know what, that's going to be hidden by trees. Anyway, the rocks don't quite match up with the rocks over the tunnel portal, but that's all right. Trees and vegetation are going to cover it. Otherwise, I've got high ridges that tend to align with where I'm seeing the rocks jut out on the bottom half. You notice I used more gray. That's okay. Again, all of that is going to be covered by vegetation. This top piece is going to be mostly ground cover and trees with rocks just poking through, as opposed to down below where it's rocks with a few trees and ground cover. So just the opposite as I get there. But the seam has been hidden pretty well, even without putting any vegetation on. But I will get some vegetation on this and cover things up, and I'm happy. I think this is going to work out pretty well. Next piece on this should show me pretty far along with vegetation. I'm sure I'm going to get started on it tonight, no doubt. Yeah, I'm getting started on doing stuff on the seam here. What you see down on the pink foam board, I will clean all of that up. But what I've done on this piece is I've built up a thicker layer of ground cover, ground foam, with more ground foam, with more ground foam, with coarse grass, with fine grain grass, different colors, some of the JTT products, just to give it some bulk so that when I get it put into place up until right about here, this side of the layout is going to cover the seam. When I get over into this area where it starts to flatten out going up, then I will make it on this side to cover the seam on this side. But I've got some trees in here, the ground cover. It's all wet with glue, but I'm making it look more fall colors. I will put a few small trees on this side a little bit later, but I want to let the glue dry so I can clean this up tonight and then push it together and just see how it looks. But I think it's going to look all right. So more coming. Well, I've been doing some experimentation just to see how things are going to look here, and I think it's going to work out all right. I've got some of the ground cover on the upper half of the mountain. I've got it built out kind of thick in behind the tree line at the base of that cliff. Still going to come back and add just a little bit more in and along the cliff itself, just to kind of hide some of that gap, and you can see it more on the other side. It just doesn't look quite right. Just need a little bit more vegetation to seal it up. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that after the glue dries that I have on this now. So that's going to be a tomorrow project. But also, this is going to be the last segment in this video. I think it's long enough. I'm going to run some trains and then pick up on here for the next video. So take care and keep having fun with your layouts.